Hi everyone, I Vibhuti here. Welcome you all to my YouTube channel where I post a book review every week. I hope that you all are fine and safe. I'm going to speak about a classic today, which is Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights is one of the finest classic novels written by Emily Bronte. It is the only novel written by her between 1845 and 1846. She published this novel in 1847, not by her own name, but by her pseudonym name, Ellis Bell. After Emily's death, her sister, Charlotte Bronte, edited the book and republished it in 1850. It's a mid-19th century Victorian novel, and later it was adapted as a movie. This novel revolves around the main characters, Catherine and Heathcliff. We enjoy the spellbound passion and madness of Heathcliff and Catherine's love for each other. We see these two central characters, Catherine as a beautiful, suffering woman, a typical victim, caught between the divergent pulls of the head and heart, and Heathcliff as a tall, dark, and handsome lover with eyes full of black fire and psychopathic. This story was narrated and it goes into flashback. There are two main narrators. One is Lockwood and another is Nellie. There is no uniformity in the act of narration. It is narrated from different time zones. Certain things are told in one way, whereas other things are narrated in a different way. A story within a story can be revealed when we remove one layer after another. The story starts with the narration of Lockwood in year 1801. Lockwood rents a manor house called Thrushcross Grange, 4 miles away from another manor, Wuthering Heights. Both the manors was owned by Heathcliff. He comes to visit Mr. Heathcliff, who lives in Wuthering Heights and stuck there in bitter and cold hostile environment. Due to the bad weather, he stayed in Wuthering Heights for a night in Catherine's room on first floor, where he discovers Catherine's diary and develops a curiosity to know about the story. He was so engrossed in the story that he found himself in the nightmare. He started his narration from his dream and Catherine's diary entry. Next day, he comes back to Thrushcross Grange and requested Nellie to narrate the story. Nellie Dean was the housekeeper. She spent her whole life in the Heights and Grange. She was not only the first-hand witness to its intimate affairs but also an involved participant. She starts her narration by remembering her childhood from year 1760. Her narration started with the two families, Earnshaw family and Linton's family. Earnshaw family lived in Wuthering Heights. Mr. Earnshaw is the owner of this house. He lived there with his wife and 2 children, son Hindley and daughter Catherine. One day Mr. Earnshaw was going to Liverpool for some work and asked his children for the gifts he will bring for them over his way back home. Hindley asked for a fiddle and Catherine asked for a whip. But for their surprise, when he came back home, instead of getting the gifts for them, he brought with him an orphan boy who was starving and houseless. Mrs. Earnshaw and other members of family were not welcoming towards him, but showed sympathy at the end. Heathcliff was washed, given clean clothes to wear, and allowed to sleep with their own children. Hindley hates Heathcliff, but gradually Catherine starts loving him, and two soon grew inseparable. They spent their days playing on the moors. After the death of his wife, Earnshaw starts taking Heathcliff's side, but Hindley's disliking towards him increases and he bullied him. His hatred grew and he becomes violent. Mrs. Earnshaw sends Hindley away to college for his studies and kept Heathcliff with him at Wuthering Heights. He tried to protect Heathcliff against Hindley's hatred. He thought that by this way he can reduce the bitterness between Heathcliff and Hindley, but he failed. Earnshaw died after 3 years, and Hindley becomes the owner of Wuthering Heights, as he inherited his father's property. He came back home after his father's death with his wife, Frances. He started taking revenge from Heathcliff and treated him like a servant. But Catherine continued to like Heathcliff and care for him. The second family narrated by Nellie was Linton's family. They were more prosperous than Earnshaw family and lived in Thrushcross Grange, 4 kilometers away from Wuthering Heights. Mr. and Mrs. Linton also had two children, Edgar and Isabella. One day when Catherine and Heathcliff were playing in the moor, she intended to visit them to tease. Catherine was bitten by a dog and had to stay there for 5 weeks. During that period, Mrs. Linton took care of Catherine and works to make her a proper lady. When she came back home, everyone was impressed with Catherine's new demeanor. She was infatuated with Edgar. Despite of deep love with Heathcliff, and the story becomes complicated. When she returned back home, she found Heathcliff in miserable condition, ill-treated by his brother Hindley. Catherine's desire for social upliftment leads her to engage herself with Edgar, despite of her overpowering love for Heathcliff. Edgar was different from Catherine, but that union was realistic in the society. Catherine has a discussion about this with Nellie, and Heathcliff heard that conversation and ran away from Wuthering Heights. When Catherine came to know about this, she was heartbroken. She was very sad and fell ill. Finally, she married with Edgar. Here in Wuthering Heights, Hindley's wife Frances died after giving birth to their son Hareton. Hindley went into depression, started gambling and taking alcohol. After 3 years, Heathcliff returned back to Wuthering Heights. With mysterious wealth, he wanted to take revenge from each and everyone who done wrong to him. It was the result of accumulated anger of past injustice and frustration in love. As the Heathcliff was a wealthy man now, he was welcomed by Hindley. Hindley was in debt and he lends more money to Hindley so that his debt increases more. Finally, one day he dies and Heathcliff inherits Wuthering Heights. He completed his revenge from Hindley. Hindley's son, Hareton, was neglected now and was totally dependent upon Heathcliff. Now he wanted to inherit Thrushcross Grange and take revenge from Edgar. He married Isabella, Edgar's sister. Isabella ran from her house despite of Catherine's warning that Heathcliff is a ruthless man. After marriage, he was very cruel with Isabella and ill-treated her. Isabella ran away from the clutches of Heathcliff and goes to London. She was very unhappy with the marriage and overall situation. She fell ill, gave birth to a boy, Linton. and died after her death. Edgar brought Linton to his house, but Heathcliff demanded for his son. Here in Thrushcross Grange, Catherine also fell ill, gave birth to a girl, Cathy, and died during the childbirth. After Catherine's death, Edgar also died after a few years. Now Heathcliff inherited Thrushcross Grange also. He becomes the master of both Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. After a few years, Catherine's daughter Cathy was married to Heathcliff's son Linton in 1801. But Linton also died after a year. Cathy was Heathcliff's widowed daughter-in-law and was totally dependent upon Heathcliff. The story comes in present. Nellie stops her narration. Now Cathy and Hareton both are dependent upon Heathcliff and they both fall in love with each other. But now Heathcliff is tired of taking revenge and do not want to destroy anything including their love. They decided to marry on the new year of 1802 and started living in Thrushcross Grange. Here in Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff's end was near. He misses Catherine a lot. He feels her spirit nearby. He wishes that her spirit haunt him. In this way, he wanted to feel her presence. He sometimes goes to Moor and opens her grave to look at her. He wants to feel her, even as a ghost. And finally, one day, he also died and buried along with Catherine. It's a kind of love story in which lovers' union was not possible in their lifetime. But the story gives us the message that if we truly love someone, it is not only for lifetime, but it goes beyond that in eternity. Love is a feeling which is beyond everything, and even death cannot separate the lovers. At the end, Lockwood, one of the narrator of this story, returns to London, and Nellie, the second narrator, comes back to Thrushcross Grange with Cathy and Hareton. It's an engrossing and a gothic tale. Scenes of evil and cruelty seem as fascinating as those of love and compassion. It's a worth reading book which is full of intense emotions. If you are a reader and a book lover, then subscribe my channel. Please like, share, and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get notification of my new book reviews. Thank you for watching.